Hey guys, welcome back to a brand new video. Thank you so much for tuning in. And firstly, the 300 amazing souls that have subscribed, hopefully by the time this video goes out, it will be at 300. Thank you so much for being a subscriber. Thank you for clicking that button. I know it kind of doesn't seem like a lot to do, but it is actually quite a commitment for people. Like A, you're committing to listen to my rambling a little bit more, and B, it's an indication that I'm doing something right. And that's a good sign. That's a good thing in the world today where we're cluttered with information. If you haven't caught up to speed who I am, my name's Brendan. I'm the head coach and owner of Raw Motion Fitness. My journey to this podcast in particular and this YouTube channel has been wild. And I've done YouTube channels before and I've coached people for many years now. This whole channel has been born out of chronic pain, functional patterns, and really trying to understand the world of fitness and health a little bit deeper and a little bit better, and unpacking it for you, really. This is the point of this podcast and the point of these resources, which I send out every single week. I send out 2 resources a week on my newsletter that I think would be really helpful for people if they're trying to look after their health, if they're in pain, and if they're looking to live a pain-free, happy, healthy life, right? That's the point of this channel. That's the point of what I've been doing over the last few years, building my career up in this space. Having lost 10 stone, which is quite a lot of weight for those who don't know what stone is. It's basically like lots of little pebbles thrown in together to like... No, I'm joking. It's just that was just a terrible joke. We're going to crack on with the resources for you today. I'll try and keep this one as brief as possible, and the links will all be down below, especially including the link to join the newsletter broadcast going out to you. Okay, so first resource I shared, I hit you with a slow motion video of Usain Bolt sprinting. How cool is that? For those who don't know, I've been getting training through functional patterns. I'm actually just about to go and become a practitioner with functional patterns. Really cool, I'm excited. But Usain Bolt forms the basis of study for anyone coming into the functional patterns realm, and then you can start moving out from there and looking at other sprinters and people who move really well is who you've got to really look at when you start to look at your own movement. So the point of sharing this is because I coach a lot of clients every single day. The hardest part for me is teaching them to analyze other people's movements and their own movements so that they know how to solve their own problems. And that's a large part of what functional patterns does. It doesn't just take a group of muscles, let's say like chest and back, and train your chest and back just because we're on a chest and back program. It looks at the human and goes, right, okay, well, you've got an imbalance over here. Today, your shoulders have tilted really randomly into a different direction, or there's a slight scoliosis. What can we do? What tools, what exercises do we know that can help correct this imbalance in your body? And so when you look at someone who moves really well, i.e. Usain Bolt in the resource, you start to see that actually they do so many things very, very well on a very basic level. So many small little things come together really well to produce Usain Bolt sprinting. And that's how I like to think of it for myself. It's how I like to coach my clients to think, is well, how good am I moving today? What does my body feel like? What does my body look like? So go and have a look at that, and then start watching videos. If you're interested in this sort of stuff, start watching videos of other people move. I follow the NBA basketball on Instagram. I follow Usain Bolt on Instagram. I follow a whole bunch of movement people on Instagram, because if I'm just filling my feed up with people who move really, really well and people who don't move really, really well, then I'm going to get 2 different interesting ways of studying human movement. For me, I find that fascinating. For you, you might find that boring. Ultimately, if you want to get fit, strong, healthy, and tone up and look amazing, you've got to address how you move. Moving on from there, the second resource, and this is quite obscure for people who've never heard of him before, a chap called Ray Peat was interviewed on this YouTube channel. I'll put the video up because I've actually forgotten the lady's name. Now, Ray Peat has been around for years talking about hormones, talking about diet, and how you can clean up your diet so that you can live a long, happy, healthy lifestyle. Okay, here's the thing, right? There's mainstream fitness health advice. It's shit, basically. They share just enough to get likes, to enter the popularity contest that is Instagram, and they don't actually provide any real value and context. Let's take, for example, someone who eats a really poor diet, goes out for food all the time, has no control over what goes into their food. The chances of them having higher levels of polyunsaturated fats in their diet is quite high. So in this podcast with Ray Peat, he talks about that. He talks about the sort of the deeper level stuff that people just skirt over in the industry. Everyone's like, oh, just remove sugar and just remove that, or fat's bad for you. No, wait, fat's good for you. Oh, low fat. Now we need high fat. No, we need low fat. Low fat was popular. Then it was low. Now it's low sugar. So now everything is banging on about sugar. And it's like, well, actually, is it really going to change that much if everyone takes sugar out of their diet? Or is it that there's things that the sugar is mixed with that are causing the issues in the first place? Let's look at chocolate, a standard dairy milk that you can find in the UK. Oh, look at that, polyunsaturated fats. And there's specific types of foods with sugar in that you should be avoiding, but sugar on its own, table sugar, that's not really bad if you think about it. And that's what Ray Peat's fundamentals have been about over this whole time. So check that out, because that is like a whopper of a resource right there. Heading into week 12, sodium and water. Right, I want you to think of a scenario where someone goes into hospital and they need an operation. What is the first thing that they're told? You need to fast. You fast for X amount of time, you'll go under general anesthetic, you'll do the whole operation, and then you're sent out. But there's a period of time there where that human being is placed into care or placed into a holding position where they're waiting for their surgery slot to come up. So from my point, I was having my appendix out and I was held for 4 days, even though I was told like it's happening tonight. 4 days I had to wait for a surgical spot to open up for them to take the appendix out. During that 4-day stretch, I didn't actually eat any food because I was on like a standby list. So I didn't actually know when it was going to happen. So I lay there on a saline drip for 4 days. And as a 13, 14 stone human being, I wasn't hungry. Can you believe it? I didn't eat anything. The reason for that is because the nutrients that were going in through the IV made all the difference. So you can treat your water a little bit like that. A lot of people don't drink enough water in the first place, and I've got a whole stint on that. If you want to find out more, please let me know. But water is super, super important because it's what we're made up of mostly. We are soft, squidgy, waterish tissue. The point is, check that resource out. It's a recipe from Elliot Hulse. I've worked with Elliot Hulse in his mentorship program. Quick one from me. I'm just editing this video and I got the resources a little bit confused. There's 2 resources with this. There's Elliot Hulse's recipe, which is on Instagram, and then there's a resource to zero fasting, which is all about sodium, and there's a couple of articles on that. So have at it. The link's in the description below. And he's got some really good resources on nutrition. He's got some really good resources on fasting. And part of his fasting protocol was to have some of this, what he calls snake juice, which is quite interesting. But try it out. It works really well, keeps you nice and full, keeps you nice and hydrated. And especially if you're reaching for snacks and lots of caffeine at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, this one's a good one for you. On from there, All About Water with Paul Chek. Now, this actual video is like a segment of one of his podcasts. So go check Paul Chek. Go check Paul Chek out. Go check Paul Chek out. Water is such a big one, man. Like I've said here, okay, I've said in the resource, like where I come from, we have alarming rates of cancer and depression, but the country relies purely on recycled water. too much of a coincidence in my mind. I'm from a country called Zimbabwe, and then I moved to a country called Botswana. And when I moved to Botswana, it became very apparent to me that I was not going to be drinking the tap water. I may have started drinking it, but then I certainly stopped drinking it after a while, because it was all very chlorinated, highly recycled, and it's a desert. You know, they literally recycle the water that goes into the sewers, they pull it out, they extract it, they run it through some chemicals, and then they put it back into the taps for everyone to use. Now, what I found quite interesting is that I left there quite early on. I only lived there for a handful of years, but people who lived there for a long time, generally their health was pretty poor. Yes, there were high levels of smokers, big drinkers, there was a big expat community, but what the biggest commonality of all of these people were is that that a lot of people got cancer, that a lot of people suffered with depression, but a lot of people were sort of had longer periods of time exposed to that kind of water. And water is like everything to me. You know, drink a good amount of water every single day, get your water from a good source as best you can, and you know, keep your body hydrated. It's the only body you've got. Paul Chek, really interesting, can talk for hours on water itself. So please check that one out. I could unpack this even further, but I'm going to hold off on that for the moment because there's just too much to say. But understand there's like hundreds of different chemicals and additives in drinking water from the tap. Every single day people will find, you could test your water and you probably find like levels of antidepressants in there, just because there's so much of it, so prevalent in society these days that eventually it's going to get into the water supply. And think about this, right? There is the amount of water that there is the amount of water that there is in the world. Like, it doesn't, we don't just like, there's no magical universe tap that just pumps the world full of water. Like, whatever water is here. So the idea that it hasn't been able to be cleaned properly, either by the environment or through a chemical plant, means that we are living in a very toxic world. And the more we can clean that up, the better our health is going to be. Top foods to avoid to perform better. So this one is an article from Functional Patterns, and this just talks about food in general, like what foods are going to slow you down. 9 times out of 10, the foods that are going to slow people down are highly processed grains in particular, things like bread, things like pseudo grains, which are really interesting, things like that you may think are really like not a problem at all, like quinoa, or something like oats. Oats is like huge in running communities, sports and performance communities. A lot of people just put their hand, I did for a time. In fact, my recipe book has still got oats in a recipe form in it, because for me it was like, well, oats is actually touted as quite a good digestive food, but actually if you think about refined grains, how they react with water, when they go into your body, bearing in mind we've just talked about water, like, it's no doubt that these grains are causing disruption in people's digestive system and causing inflammation in the intestines and in the stomach lining and the guts, because they literally absorb water. Like the same with nuts. Nuts, you would have thought, well, nuts are all right. Well, actually, nuts are just polyunsaturated fats in the first place. But secondly, they expand when they've got water. So for you to eat a whole bunch of nuts, they're going to sit in your stomach and expand. No wonder you might have issues performing when you've got a little bit of bloating or something like that. Now, everyone's going to have their different levels of tolerance, but have a look at that. All I can say is, the more that you dial your diet back into a simpler form, and the less emotional that you can be with your food, and the more you can just think of food as fuel, the better your health is going to be. Bottom line. Resource 2, motivation. Now, that week in particular was quite weird because I did a whole bunch of progress photos. It was particularly because I'd sat down and I was looking at my functional patterns progress, and I was like, let me put all my pictures together. Now, I used to do like a Monday motivation video. I used to go and record in my car every single Monday morning a video, and I would post it on Facebook. And it was just like some weeks there'd be like 2 people liking it, and then some weeks it would just go off the chain, and it would always reach people. And I was like, I've got to be providing motivation for people because they don't have motivation. And then I started to think about like motivation as itself. Like motivation is nothing. You can't buy motivation. I said that in my previous video. You can't buy like results, and motivation has to come from within. It cannot come from anywhere else. So if you listen to someone talk, you're likely to be motivated. Some people will say, oh, that really motivated me. It was like, well, actually, maybe it just really inspired you rather than motivated you, and maybe your understanding of motivation is wrong, because motivation is an intrinsic drive. So for me to lose weight back when I was like really fat, I was going to motivate myself to do it. Now I could be inspired by someone in the process of losing weight and go, do you know what, I've just realized that if you can do this, I can do this. And that's the point of me sharing that progress photo, is like, look, I'm not exactly the most, I don't look like Usain Bolt, right? I'm just an average kind of guy. Yeah, I'm pretty good at golf. I played golf at quite a good level. Could have taken it a lot further, but I'm not exactly just like some hunk of sporting prowess, right? I've had to earn what I've got. And if I can do it, then you can do it. You can seriously do it. I mean, genuinely, like genetically speaking, I'm not exactly the most genetically gifted out there, but I have got a good looking face and a sexy voice. So let's put that to one side. But on the flip side of that, I want you to understand, like, I don't know what you look like. You know, I don't know who's watching this, but understand that if I can change my life and help other people in that process, if I can do all these things and lose weight and put my time into functional patterns and learning how to like fix my rounded back and fix my chronic pain, and if I can successfully do it, then you can do it, like 100%. So call it motivation. I don't know what you want to call it, but I just want you to understand that if I can do something, you can do it too. The last 2 resources here. The first one, I've updated my recipe book and my wonderful pain-free guide. So if you're looking for some ideas on food, and maybe you've got some chronic pain, or you've got some aches and pains, and you want to kind of get to the bottom of it, I've updated these into an electronic members only access, and you can sign up for that down below. When I say members only, for now it's free. So if you go to that link, you'll be able to get in there for absolutely free, and be in that community. It's like a private members area, and you'll have access to that. And I update the recipes by video, so there'll be like new videos going in there throughout the course of the year, and you'll have access to that. So please go check that out. Simply register at the link down below, and you'll get yourself in there. The second resource and the last resource of this podcast is the death of the deadlift, is what I called it. Now that's a slight tweak on the actual article itself from Functional Patterns. Oh dear, this is going to upset a few people. Deadlifting, right? I did deadlifting, like, I don't know, when I started being a trainer, I started deadlifting, and then I stopped deadlifting like in 2020 because I just couldn't do it anymore. It was just too painful. It was literally painful. And bear in mind, like, I started to deadlift and I did a strength and conditioning program to fix my rounded back, right? I want you to understand that. So I'm not talking out of not knowing. I'm talking out of experience. I followed a strength and conditioning program to help fix my upper back and my shoulders, and then added in strength elements such as deadlifts, such as squats, floor pressing work, overhead work. I've done it, and I did it, and I followed the program, and halfway through that I got injured, and it was really painful, and I'm now recovering from chronic pain. So I know what I'm talking about when I say that some of these movements, although in theory they should work, I thought to myself when I started deadlifting, I genuinely believed that putting myself in that position, I needed posterior chain recruitment. I needed to use my back muscles more than I used my front muscles because I had a kyphosis. So if I turn here and if I say, okay, well, I'm going to activate all the muscles in my chest, do you see how that pulls me into kyphosis? Right? So naturally what you would think is, well, my back muscles are too lengthened. So what I need to do is I need to activate those back muscles and shorten them. So what should I go away and do? Oh, well, I'll go away and train my back and my posterior chain. So guess what I went and did? I trained a whole bunch of my back, of my posterior chain. And so I ended up pulling myself into this position here. And so what we've been unpacking with my practitioner over the last few months is my body's ability to have frontline tension, even though my back is kyphotic and rounded. My tendency as a person at this stage in my life, I'm having to unlearn how much of my back that I use to move, and I have to relearn of how much of my front muscles I use or need to use to move. So I've done deadlifts and strength and conditioning all based on the premise that I needed to fix my shoulders, and we were attacking it from completely the wrong avenue. So what this article goes into is the practicality or the sensible nature of doing deadlifting movements and recruiting the right muscles in balance of each other to create that lift and that strength. And unfortunately, deadlifts just don't do it. They're just not good for you, in my view. And this is also the view of functional patterns. I think the article was very well written, and in fact it's been 2 years since I've actually programmed anyone a deadlift, because I just can't do it. I just can't put people through it. If you've got an imbalance in your body and you just go and start doing deadlifts like I did, you're probably going to end up hurt. Those are all the resources covered for you today. I highly recommend going to check out the ones that I've mentioned. Just, guys, honestly, hit me with the comments. Like, I'm open to having discussion. If you disagree and you think deadlifts are the best, I want to hear it down in the comments. Come on, let's go for it. Let's have a chat. If you think that drinking water is the worst thing in the world, let's talk about it. If you want to know how much water to drink, if you want to know what recipes that Ray Peat suggests, go and have a look at those resources. Pop a comment down below. Maybe I can share some links with you to other things that might help you on your journey. Other than that, I'm going to go and enjoy the rest of my day. I hope you can too. Have a great week. Have a great month wherever you are. And if we've hit the 300 mark, then thank you very much for you wonderful 300 souls. I look forward to making more videos and making this channel grow even bigger to reach more people. Have a great day, stay strong, and keep moving.